On today's episode of James and IT, we're going to help you get started with the Windows terminal. Let's get going. One of the most powerful features of any operating system is the command line. Knowing and understanding the command line is an important skill set for anyone wanting to be in IT. It doesn't matter if you're a newbie or a veteran. Understanding and knowing how to get things done on the command line is very important. My kitty is hanging out with me today. He's helping me with our video. So I thought I'd show you guys the Windows terminal because as far as Windows goes, it's an awesome terminal emulator. Let me show you what it looks like. So here we're in our sandbox environment. Hi, Simon. And you'll notice down here, I've got this little box with this greater than sign. There's a couple different ways of accessing the Windows terminal. Now, if you're running a version of Windows, an older version of Windows 10 or older, but you're not going to have this installed, you will actually need to navigate to the Microsoft Store, or you can navigate to the GitHub repository for the Windows terminal and download and install it. But if you are on a modern version of Windows 10 or if you're on Windows 11, you're going to have Windows terminal already installed. A couple different ways of accessing it, just to show you. If you right click on your Windows taskbar button, you'll see that these are terminal. Now, if you're on an older version, it's going to say PowerShell or it may say command. But if it says terminal, then you already have terminal installed. Another way of accessing it is if you just open up the menu and just start typing, you'll see terminal app is installed. Again, if you don't have it, just go to your Windows store, look up terminal app, and go ahead and install it that way. This is the Windows terminal. Now, this is purely a command line interface. If you've never heard of a command line interface, basically you type stuff in here and it gives you information in or about your computer. Now, let's make this a little bit bigger and easier to see. By default, it opens up PowerShell in Windows terminal, but you can have multiple shells in here. If we hit this little caret here, we could see that we can open a command line, Azure Cloud Shell. There's even a couple developer prompts. And if we had Windows Subsystem for Linux on here, we would see those, whether it's Ubuntu, Debian, Kali, any version of Linux that you have installed, or distribution rather, you would see in this list. And you can add things to this list if you want to and make changes to it. So for example, if we go into our settings here and we look at this, we'll notice we could change our default profile if we want the command prompt instead of PowerShell, or maybe if we're doing a lot of Azure things, we could change it to Azure Cloud Shell, just for an example. We can also change the behavior of it. You know, what do we want as our default terminal application? Personally, I always suggest you select Windows Terminal because you can do so much with it. From there, you can even have it launch when you start the computer, so you're already in the shell. Or you can change things like the size, what size of the window you want. So right now I've got 120 by 30 rows. So it kind of gives you an idea of some of the options that you have. But the nice part about it is you can change the appearance. Like you can choose from like a dark or a light theme here. You can change how it looks. Like the way you create tabs if you want, after the last tab or before or after the current tab when you create a new one. You can use acrylic mode where in the tab row. So if we save this, it would change next time we launch. We'll just close this and I'll show it to you. Open it back up. Now we have the acrylic. We'll go back in here into appearance. You can also change like the pane animations, notification area. There's tons of settings in here. You can even change your colors. So we could say like, here's the dark, but we could change it to the PowerShell blue if we wanted to. Now I've got this set, actually, let me go into here, change our defaults, because I've got this currently set up so its appearance by default is going to be the Campbell. But if we change it to Campbell PowerShell and then hit save, close this and open up a new one, now we see that we have that blue. Now the background's transparent here because I've got it set to where it is transparent. I've also changed the font. You can change the fonts for all your shells. So I use the Hack Nerd font, and I'll have another video here on how to make your terminal look awesome. But for now, just know you could change the font. So if there's another font that you want to use, you can. But note that you can add, even like with your settings, you can add a new profile. So you could say what type of terminal you want. Like let's say we want another Windows PowerShell, or we could just create a new one if we don't want a template. And we can say what we want to call this, what command line we want to use. So maybe you have Cygwin installed, you can create one for Cygwin. You can change the icon of it, and that's the icon in this menu. You can make it have several different icon types that you want. You can change the title of it. You can say that you want this running as administrator, for example. That way you have an administrative prompt, and you can change the settings. The defaults changes it for all terminals, but if you go under the specific terminal that you have, then you can change the coloring and stuff right in here and set all these settings just for that one terminal, which is nice. You can also change things like the font size, the width, all of these things, even your cursor. This is how I made my background transparent so we can see through it. And you can even enable acrylic if you want. The acrylic, I think, is a cool effect. We'll disable that. Let's go in advanced. I want to show you this here real quick. It's kind of nice to have that acrylic effect. So if we create a new one, you'll see how the acrylic actually hides it because we have that changed. You can play with these quite a bit and see what you like and make changes as you go. But know that this terminal, you've got a whole host of settings that you can play with. It's not just limited to the things that you are seeing in this video, obviously. But I highly recommend, if you've never used a terminal before, tinker with it, play with it. You'll find that's very handy and very helpful. You can also change like a lot of the themes and things in here. So this video was meant to be just a real quick introduction to what the Windows terminal is. And just as a summary, it's a command line interface for your computer. I've got other videos on how to use things like PowerShell and many other videos coming out about this. And so be sure to check out those if you want to learn the command line and power up on your skill set. As always, I'm James in IT, and thanks for watching.